What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bring incredible guests from all over the world, so sit back, relax, and tune in. My next guest is an author. She is also a podcast host and creator of Bump in the Road and a pilot. Please welcome Pat Wetzel. Pat, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
You have had to overcome quite a few. You went to Wharton Business School. You have overcome, dealing with a disease that was uncurable, and you had to just kind of rebuild your life multiple times. So I'm gonna let you decide where you want to start your journey and talk about your story, because you've dealt with a lot, kind of like all at once.
Let me divide it into a few short segments.
Okay.
One, from Wall Street to disability.
Yeah.
Two, from a really brutal divorce to learning to fly sailplanes, high-performance gliders, if you will.
Yeah.
From there to supposedly incurable cancer. And actually, it was a stock market crash. I lost about $2 million in the real estate market, and I was diagnosed with incurable cancer in a year period.
Oh,
then, theft of intellectual property in my business, which caused me to say, screw it all, I have had it. And I sold my house, put everything in storage, and went traveling.
Wow, that's a lot. And it just shows how resilient we are, right?
I think you have to learn resilience as you go through life. Otherwise, you'll continually be tested to learn it.
Yeah.
But I think it's a learnable skill. I think it's becoming comfortable outside your comfort zone and seeing the creativity and possibility as events unfold.
Absolutely. Well, all of your challenges, right, and hurdles you've had to get over really kind of motivated you and inspired you to write your book, Bump in the Road, and create your podcast, which is Bump in the Road Podcast as well. And from those stories, from your stories, you wrote the book, right? What inspired you first?
Well, the podcast came about when travel shut down in 2020. Oh. So I started interviewing people all over the world. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if this would fly. I didn't know if anybody would come on. But I ended up with these amazing stories. And that motivated me to write the book, because I have a 30,000-foot view on my podcast. I talk to everybody. So I can see all the common threads across all the stories. And the book helps to pull some of those together, at least. And it's the first in a series. The next book is Bump in the Road, Strong Women.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a good one. I think that's great to be highlighting women these days, because we still are not as empowered as we should be.
I think women, being one myself, are pretty amazing. And I think that we bring such valuable attributes and perspectives to the equation. I always say that if women had written the code for search, imagine how different Google would be.
Ooh, yeah, way different.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I like that, to think about that. I kind of want to talk about your disease that you had to overcome. It says it's supposedly incurable. How are you doing now?
I'm fine. I'm off all medication. I get a little tired sometimes, but I deal with it. And actually, what happened was, when I was flying, I realized that I just couldn't quite get the medication titration right. The problem was too much medication had the same side effects as too little. So it's like a big fun house. You never know where you are. Yeah. So I decided to start titrating myself off of it. Now, if I say that to a doctor or a pharmacist, they go white. But I just intuitively thought it was the right thing to do. And it has turned out to be the right thing to do.
That's amazing. And so can you share with the audience what you had, the type of cancer that you had?
Oh, well, I was talking about myasthenia gravis, actually. But the cancer was nodal marginal zone lymphoma, which is hopefully manageable but not curable.
So you had two different things going on.
Yeah, earlier on I had neurologic disease. Later on I had cancer.
Oh, my Lord.
The cancer part has turned out to be kind of interesting in that I think in cancer, this sounds strange, but I actually found an enormous amount of joy. I reacclimated to seeing joy in life, big time. And that stays with me. And that is such a gift. And I know people hate it when you associate cancer with any kind of gift. But it's an event just like any other event in your life. And it's up to you to decide what you take from it.
That's really beautiful and profound. So how did you come to feel joy with that diagnosis?
It stopped me in my tracks. I had to be still. I learned to meditate. but I started seeing the beauty in everyday life. I mean, a hummingbird in the garden, the warmth of the sun on your skin, a breeze blowing the hammock tassels, just those little things that we don't even take them for granted. We ignore them. We just run right by them. I learned to meditate. I learned to be much more present. And that was a real game changer.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine. And so what is the treatment for that type of cancer?
Ongoing series of of awful drugs or a transplant. And actually what I did, I don't recommend anybody else do this, but I just hit a point where my business was virtually destroyed by a partner, with intellectual property. And I'd gone to see my oncologist because my hair was falling out from stress, not from chemo this time. I'm vomiting blood.
Right.
And he's just like, oh, we can run 50 really expensive invasive tests and find something wrong with you. And I just left the office and I thought, you know what? I've had it.
Yeah.
If the past is any indication of the future, I'm looking at 18 to 24 months before the tumors totally overrun my body. I'm not doing this anymore. I left and I put my house up for sale, put everything in storage and went traveling. And knock on wood, so far I'm fine.
And how long ago was that?
That was in 2017.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. You probably wouldn't recommend that to somebody else, right?
No, that's just anyone do this, but it was right for me. I have found that as I've gone through life, there's a piece of me that just craves the wrong word. I relish adventure.
Yeah.
I like being outside my comfort zone. I think it's a place that's of enormous possibility and creativity. And I, like anyone else, I like to be comfortable and I drift back there, but I can't stay there too long. I need to keep opening my world.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, even though you still have this quote unquote diagnosis of having cancer, you are still pretty active. That's why you live where you live or you're moving to where you're moving. Last time we talked, you were getting ready to move.
I'm moving up to Idaho because I do crave the mountains and the big lakes.
Yeah.
And there's a very active soaring community up there too.
Oh, very cool. Tell us about that, actually, because I didn't know what a sailplane was until I went to your website. You guys that are listening or watching this, you have to go to her website, and she's going to drop that link here later on, and see. If you don't know what a sailplane is and what soaring is, you're going to be blown away by it. So share that with us.
Sailplanes, or people refer to them as gliders, are very high performance, high tech instruments. 15 to 20 some odd meters in wingspan. These things can cruise hundreds of miles in a breath of air.
Wow.
So the name of the game is you get towed up, you release, and you have to find invisible sources of energy to navigate your route. Okay. It's a metaphor for life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's astonishing. It's so beautiful. I mean, you can race down mountain spines at almost 200 miles an hour. You can fly to over 30,000 feet. You can stay aloft for hours and hours and hours. It's a sport of incredible beauty, incredible humility, as you look at these massive forces of the earth that are keeping you aloft. And it makes you recognize how small we are relative to the earth. And it gives you, I think, an enormous, very deep, humble appreciation of this incredible planet that we're on.
Yeah. The cancer's probably scared of you, like, oh, we're not going to kill her because she's a pilot of a sailplane.
Well, you know what I said? I said to a friend of mine once, if anything bad, really bad comes along my way, I'm going to buy a plane and rent it and spin it in. And he said, don't buy it, rent it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Forget buying it. Yeah. Just rent it.
Just rent it and spin it in.
So what made you get into that? Like, how did you know what that was? Because I've never heard of that before. And I'm sure a lot of people listening don't know what that is.
Neither had I. I was going through an awful divorce and I went cross country to visit some friends and just kind of think a little, what am I going to do? I mean, everything in my life had totally fallen apart. And I was out in California and I rented a white Mustang convertible, roof down, cruising through wine country, right? Life is good for the moment anyway.
Yeah.
This was back around 1989-ish, okay? I pulled into Calistoga, and Calistoga was kind of run down back then. Wine country wasn't as polished as it is now.
Yeah.
And at the end of Main Street, there was an airstrip that intersected the main street. And I thought, well, this is interesting. And they had glider rides. So I went for a ride. It was okay, didn't blow me away. Went back about my trip and went back to the East Coast, where I heard about 3 pilots that flew gliders on the weekends.
Mm.
So I invited myself out on a 3-day weekend. I flew for 3 straight days, and I was totally hooked.
Yeah.
And from there, I moved from a 2-seat trainer to a low-performance single-seat plane to a high-performance single-seat plane. And I later took that plane across the country and relocated to the Lake Tahoe area.
Wow, that is so cool. How long did it take you to? So you have to get your actual pilot's license.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean that takes a little while depending on how fast you want to learn, right?
Yeah, and you have to build the hours. Your instructor has to sign you off, and then you start building solo hours in the dual trainer. And then after that, you can start moving to single seat planes, which is what I did. And I'll never forget the first single seat plane I ever flew was a 126, which is a really low performance plane with a cult following in the aviation community. It's a wonderful little plane.
Yeah.
And somebody will hold your wing level, so you start off level as you follow the tow plane down the runway. And the gentleman who was holding my wing held it, then he put it down, and he came over and he tapped on the canopy. And I opened the canopy and he said, "Be careful. It's a little pitch sensitive." And I thought, what do you mean it's a little pitch sensitive?
My God.
I found out pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, what does that mean?
Just be very gentle on the movement with the stick, because you could pop it up really quickly. And that's dangerous because you could either go into a PIO, a pilot-induced oscillation, which is not where you're going like this down the runway. You don't want to do that.
Oh.
You could also potentially endanger the tow plane and the tow plane pilot. So when you take off, you have to stay low to the ground, keep those wings level, and fly with the tow plane until they take off. And then you fly in tandem up until you release in the sky.
So it doesn't actually have like a motor.
No motor.
Right. And so then you glide to your landing then.
Well, you go traveling. You're not going to come back and land. That's too boring.
No. I know after you're done, but after you're done like traveling around for however long, you just glide to a landing.
Well, the idea is to get back to your home airport. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes you land at other airports. Sometimes you land in other places. So there's a lot of...
You are fascinating. I love it.
Well, I could bore you with flying stories all day. But there's an element of risk management inherent in the sport.
Well, I'm all about risk. So I think I probably would enjoy that once I learned how to do it.
It's magic. It is truly magic. I am so grateful to have had those experiences flying, and I'm looking to get back into it again. When I move, it is the most incredible set of experiences I've ever had, and I've learned so much from it all.
Yeah, well, I'm sure not only from the technical side, but probably from like a spiritual, elevated, higher vibrational side of just being up there and being humbled by, the creation that's all around you. I can't even imagine.
Well, one day, this is a very short story, but I was flying over Tahoe, and you had the beautiful aquamarine, water below, and the sky is blue, and the sun is streaming through the canopy. It's just a perfect confluence of energy and sun and nature. And I'm balancing on a bubble of air, just rising up through the sky. And it was as if I moved into another dimension, is the only way I can explain it. This wasn't flow. I've experienced flow lots of times. This was just the perfect confluence of all this energy. Everything was one.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how long it lasted, but I have always taken that experience of feeling like I'm almost in another dimension with me. And in a way, it almost sets me on a quest for how can I experience that again?
Yeah, I can't. That sounds amazing. I'd like to experience that at least once too.
Come fly.
What's that?
Come fly with me.
I will. I'm in. Just let me know when you make that move and you're ready to go. Let's do it. I'm all in. So you've been through a lot of things that would hold a lot of people back, and I call them labels. Like things that just trauma that would kind of put those labels on you: divorce, disease, cancer, loss of business, all these different things. But you have had not no problem, but you've been able to rise above those things that were set out to really kind of destroy you and hold you back, but you didn't let it. And what do you think is different about you than someone else that might be out there listening that is experiencing something similar?
First of all, that type of major upheaval is ugly no matter who you are or where you are. It is not fast. It is not instant. It is not easy. And I think the biggest thing is you have to look within, because within we all have what it takes to manage and navigate these bumps in the road. But you have to decide to go on a journey really of self-discovery. And that's not always easy. It means facing trauma. It means facing elements of yourself you may not like particularly. It's definitely a road less traveled, but it's a road well worth traveling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the first place to start. So tell us about your podcast. I love the name, Bump in the Road.
Thank you. Well, Bump in the Road came out of a bump in the road.
Yeah, many.
I was traveling, and when travel shut down in 2020, I thought, well, I'll do a podcast. And I am so grateful for it. I meet the most amazing people all over the world. Their stories are amazing. And I get to share them.
Just like yours. Just like yours.
I think I'm a storyteller at heart. I love the craft of telling a story. And I love other people's stories because I think emotionally, we're all the same. We all have fear. We all have rejection. We all have isolation. We all have all these bumps we have to navigate. And I think hearing how other people navigate their bumps is so helpful and so insightful. Yeah. Part of the podcast and the book actually came out of it. Part of the book, which followed the podcast, came out of an interview I did with Eric Weinmeier. Eric is a remarkable person. He is a mountaineer. He went blind at 16, climbed Everest, the 7 summits, and he kayaked the rapids in the Colorado River.
Wow.
Yeah, he's an incredibly inspirational person. His website is nobarriersusa.org. Check it out. He does outward bound types of missions with both the disabled and veteran communities. He's he's really an incredible person. He tells a story, and this is his story, okay? But I think it's really powerful. He divides the world into 3 groups. Okay, the groups are fluid. We've all been part of each one of them. We will move through them. The first group are quitters. They're self-evident. The next group are campers. Now, campers want to stay in the status quo. They don't want to get outside their comfort zone. But in all fairness to them, they may be so beaten up by life that they can't put their head outside the foxhole anymore.
Yeah.
And then very few people are climbers. I am fascinated by what it takes to go from being a camper to a climber. And I would wish that everybody has experience of climbing, because that's where you live a realized life.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That makes sense. I'm definitely not the first 2 anymore. You know, I'm a climber. I just keep climbing no matter what. You ain't gonna take me down. That's it.
Once you get a taste of it, you don't want to go back.
But it's not for the faint of heart. You know, like you have to be willing to deal with the setbacks, right? You know, you can climb up and then you might fall down a little bit, and then you got to find a way to climb back up, maybe on another side. And, you know, if we're going to put it in those terms, it's some people just don't, like you said, beat down by life. I've been beat down. I've experienced incredible trauma in different things and loss, but, you know, and I have felt defeated at times.
I have too.
But I don't sit and wallow in that feeling like, okay, I can't sit here. This is not going to do me any good. And, you know, we only have one life to live. And, you know, we really all should be living our legend, creating our legacy. And if we're just going to stay in one place, what kind of legacy is that to leave behind?
I think life is a road trip. It's an adventure. Yeah. And that means you have to get comfortable with discomfort. You have to start seeing opportunity in being outside your comfort zone. And personally, I think that's where creativity and opportunity live. They don't live in your comfort zone. Yeah. So getting out of your comfort zone is uncomfortable, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. And the more your world expands.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So tell us about your book. Now, I know it's stories from guests that you've had on the show where you found like a common denominator between all of them. So what can someone get if they read the book or listen to your show?
Well, reading the book, it was very hard to choose just 15 stories. The book was originally much bigger. I had to cut it in half. But some of the other stories will go into another book. I tried to choose a really wide range of different experiences and show how people navigated these very significant bumps in life. I also tell a few of my own stories in the book, so you can kind of get to know who I am. And looking ahead at the next book, I don't think I'll be telling my own stories. I'll just be focusing on my gifts.
Yeah.
Because, again, with that 30,000-foot view, I see all these common traits. I see all these things that people do. And these are things that we all can do because we all have this inside of us. And I really, as daunting as it may seem, I think that if you really want to stay a camper, life may not just hand that to you. You might be forced to stretch. And if you're forced to stretch, why not make the most of it?
Yeah. Can you share with us maybe a couple of the similarities between the people in your book? Don't spoil it all, but just maybe a couple.
Oh, I think courage is certainly one. Absolutely everybody exhibited emotional or physical courage in moving forward, emotional courage in particular. Sarah Dransfield was 16 when she was diagnosed with osteosarcoma. She lost her leg. And you can imagine for a 16-year-old, she could, this consumes a year or two of your life.
Yeah.
The prosthetic never works, fits right. You have to get it refitted again and again. Well, she went on to meet the Queen, end up on the front page of Vogue Italy, skydives. I mean, she just has created an amazing life for herself.
Yeah.
And I really admire how she handled everything. I don't know that I could have done that at 16 years old.
I don't know if
That's really incredible. Mary Neal was a surgeon. She was head of the spine service at USC. And she went into private practice later on with her husband up in Jackson Hole. They were kayaking in Chile, and she was caught under a waterfall and died. She had a near-death experience. And her story has always moved me so deeply because here she is, a linear scientific person, having this, this experience that she can't measure or touch or explain.
Yeah.
And she spent a year trying to disprove her experience, and she couldn't. Wow. And it was a paradigm shift, a massive paradigm shift in terms of how she viewed the world. And, I'm trying to remember, what is it she said that really was just incredible? I'm going to have to, it'll pop in my head as that, but that paradigm shift is something that many of us face in different elements of our life. Oh, I know what she said. She said she went from hope to trust in a sense of spirituality.
Interesting. Yeah.
Big difference in the way you approach life.
Yeah, for sure. Pat, where can people find the book, find you, and learn more about you?
The best place to start is bumpintheroad.us. And from there, we're on all the major podcast platforms, on YouTube. But the website is the best place to start.
Yeah, excellent. You guys will put that link in the show notes, so don't hesitate to go click that link, go follow her on social, go check out her book. I'm sure it's on Amazon, so go support her and tune in. If you're listening to this, we know you're going to love her show. So go tune into her show, follow, and support. Pat, this is the part of the show I like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. What would you like to leave with us today?
Be true to yourself.
Yeah, short and sweet. Be true to yourself. I think that's hard in today's world because I don't think people know who they are.
It's very hard. And I think that's a quest that we all really owe it to ourselves to go on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for sharing your story, teaching us something about sailplanes and the work that you're doing to uplift and inspire and create that motivation for people to, get through those bumps in the road because it's important.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.